Please provide an argument for this alleged fact. Please demonstrate the truth of your assertion.
But the assertion is in fact the fact that there's nothing complex that came about without a designer.
You haven't demonstrated that. That is
but
the. Do you understand, John? The very thing in contention.
That's not there.
John,
there's nothing complex that came about without a designer.
John, the very thing in contention is whether or not anything complex ever came about without a designer. So asserting that it's never happened is hardly going to demonstrate it.
Take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way. Thank you.
Thank you to my patrons. Your generosity and commitment to my work is astonishing. Please consider becoming a patron today. Simply click the link in the description below. Thank you.
Hello, testing.
Hello, I can hear you loud and clear. What's your name?
Okay. John.
Hello, John. What age are you?
25. Born December 1999.
Just got to double check, John, just so that I don't end up talking to minors. So what do you got for me, John? Are you a theist?
No. But I'm going to try not to use any scriptural proof because I want to use just pure logic here.
So hang on a minute, John. Hang on a minute before we get to pure logic. Do you believe in a God?
Yes, of course. Absolutely.
Okay, so just to be clear, that means you're a theist. You believe in a God, okay? Go ahead.
Okay. No, wait. You're an atheist, not so?
Yes, I am an atheist.
So you don't believe in a God?
Correct.
Good. So how did this universe come about then?
I have no idea.
Then what? So you have no idea, but you must have an idea or something.
No, I don't know.
So it just happened just like that?
I didn't say it just happened. I said I don't know.
Okay. So
is that a puzzling response to you? Somebody saying that they don't know how something happened?
Yeah.
Why?
It's my first time actually hearing this. Because if you don't know that something happened, and then somebody give you a logical reason, why not just believe in that?
John, how many plates are in my kitchen?
I don't know.
So you do principally agree that a person can give an I don't know answer. How preposterous it would be for me to respond to you right now and say, oh, well, I don't understand why you don't know. Why can't you just tell me an answer?
Because doesn't every human being who has a house has place in the kitchen?
Yeah, but I asked you how many plates are in my kitchen. Why did you say I don't know? Why can't you just give me an answer?
No, but I don't think that applies to. That logic applies.
John, I'm asking you literally, it's not a rhetorical question. Why can't you tell me how many plates are in my kitchen?
Because I'm not there.
Okay, great. So in other words, you don't have empirical access. You don't have any data. You don't have any evidence, right? And it's the same when you ask me where the universe came from. I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't have empirical evidence or data. I'm not implying that somebody has to be there, by the way, just to clear that up. But I don't have any evidence or data to explain why there is something rather than nothing. Perhaps there was always something. Perhaps there's an explanation for the universe that we haven't identified yet. When you speak to physicists on this point, they'll tell you that we're working on it and we don't know. So I repeat, what's the problem with saying I don't know?
Well, there's no problem, but this is my first time hearing that response.
So we're agreed then. I don't know is a fair answer.
No, but you told me something before that there is logical reason that we could cipher out that there is a creator.
Okay, well let's hear it, and I'll tell you whether I think it's logical. I'll give you my feedback.
Okay, well, for example, there was this one guy. He lived in an indigenous part of the world, right? I think he was Arab or Karak, one of those people. Carib or Arawak, we call them, right? And he had never seen a car before, but we try to think of it from his perspective, right? He asked us how this car come about. Well, we told him there was an intelligent guy once, he just thought up of the idea and he made a car. So the point I'm trying to get to is that you wouldn't see something like a car and say that it just came about. It must have an intelligent being behind who invented that car. Same with computers, and the same with the most complex thing of all, which is human life or animal life or life in general. You're not going to watch something as complex as this and say, oh wow, that just came about, or I don't know how it came about. It must have somebody who thought of this marvelous design and put it into reality. Does that make any sense?
It does make sense. What you're uttering right now, John, is an old argument. It's called Paley's Watchmaker, right? Paley says that we're walking along the hills one day and we encounter a watch sitting there.
Right.
And we pick up the watch and we examine it, and we can tell from mere observation of the watch that it must have a designer. We can see that it's ticking, and we open it up and we see the gears inside, and it's operating according to a function. It tells the time. There's regularity, there's complexity, there's purpose, and all of these things point powerfully to the conclusion that the watch is designed. And Paley contrasts the watch with the hills that surround it and says, by comparison alone, we can infer that the watch is designed. But there's multiple problems with this. First of all, let me ask you, John, why is it that if something is complex, it must have a designer? Why do you think that?
Because it can't come about. Complexity must have a design.
No, but that's an assertion, John. I'll ask you again. Why do you believe that complexity equals a designer? Do you understand that if you respond to that by saying, because it can't, like because things can't come about, complex things can't come about without a designer, that's just another claim? Because now I'm just going to ask you, why can't complex things come about without a designer? So what would be your answer to that question?
Because it can't come about without a designer, because I don't think that there, how do I put this, man? Well, a lot of people believe that in the Big Bang Theory, right? That the universe just exploded and came about from nothing, but you can't get...
I don't know anybody who believes that.
A lot of atheists do. They say
Name one.
There was this... No, well, I mean in general.
No, name one. Name one famous atheist who believes that.
No. I don't follow the beliefs of famous atheists. I just know
okay, so you can't name one of those. So let's forget that claim and let's go back to the previous claim.
No. I want
you to justify your claim where you said that complex things cannot come about unless by design. Do you have any evidence for that claim?
Yeah.
Go for it. What's your evidence?
Okay, we could look at the simple structure of a beehive.
Okay, so a beehive is an example of a complex thing that was produced by an intelligent designer?
Not an intelligent designer, but a designer named the bee. Or you could look at a spider web, how a spider web...
Okay, so our universe might have been produced by a lesser designer then. It doesn't have to be a god that produced our universe, right? You just admitted yourself, a complex structure, a complex design can come about by something that isn't all intelligent. It could just, could be a lesser designer, right?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, so how are we getting to God, right? How are we getting that far?
Because that's what I was trying to explain to you from the beginning, right? About the Big Bang Theory, right?
John, just before we get to the Big Bang, I just want to just take stock of the dialectic thus far, right? So you started off by giving me this hypothetical of a car in the desert or something, and somebody finds the car, and your claim is that the person would know that this car was designed because it's complex and so forth.
Right.
I then asked you why, essentially to provide evidence for this claim that only a designer could produce something that is complex. When pressed on this, you give me the example of a beehive. I just want you to notice that giving me an example of something that is complex and that was produced by a lesser designer doesn't prove that it's impossible for complex things to come about without a designer. You see, I don't think you realize how much you've bitten off here, John. Your burden of proof is such that you have to demonstrate that a complex object cannot possibly come about unless through or by a designer. So you could list as many examples as you want. You could. I'll help you right now. I'll list a bunch of complex objects: computers, phones, tablets, cars, planes, microchips, technology, lights, houses, buildings, castles. Right? You can list as many objects as you want that are complex and that were produced by conscious-minded designers. Right? And you still wouldn't have demonstrated that it is impossible for a complex thing to come about without a designer. So do you have evidence that a complex thing cannot come about without a designer?
But there's nothing complex that didn't come about without a designer.
That's another claim. Please demonstrate that claim.
What complex thing came about without a designer?
That's a question.
No,
John, you asking me a question. I don't have to give you an example of anything. I could remain silent here. You have to be able to demonstrate your argument without questions. Questions are not arguments. If I told you right now, I can't think of anything, that wouldn't demonstrate that you were correct. All you would have demonstrated is that I'm ignorant. Your claim is that it is impossible for something complex to come about without a designer. Asking me, challenging me and saying, give me an example of something complex that came about without a designer then. That's called reversing the burden of proof, and I'm not going to tolerate that. You have to provide me evidence or an argument which demonstrates that complexity is impossible without a designer. Asking me questions isn't going to help you demonstrate that. Do you have any evidence for your claim that complexity is impossible without a designer?
Yes.
Go for it.
Well, that's just the fact that I'm telling you. Nothing complex came about without a designer.
That's an assertion, John.
The fact is in itself the answer.
You have John. Do you understand the difference between an assertion and an argument?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. You have just provided me with an assertion. You said, Dara, it's a fact that nothing complex comes about without a designer. In other words, it's a fact that complexity always points to a designer, a conscious designer. You're asserting that this is a fact, but you haven't demonstrated that this is a fact. Please provide an argument for this alleged fact. Please demonstrate the truth of your assertion.
But the assertion is in fact the fact that there's nothing complex that came about without a designer.
You haven't demonstrated that. That is do you understand, John? The very thing in contention. That's
not there.
John,
there's nothing complex that came about without a designer.
John, the very thing in contention is whether or not anything complex ever came about without a designer. So asserting that it's never happened is hardly going to demonstrate it. What you're saying is basically reducible to, Dara, the demonstration that nothing has ever come about, that nothing complex has ever come about without a designer. The demonstration of that is that nothing complex has ever come about without a designer. That is circular. You haven't demonstrated it. You're just asserting it. I could play your game. I can just assert, hey, John, complex things can come about without a designer. Now, then you'll ask me, yeah, but Dara, demonstrate it, please. And I'll say, it's demonstrated by the fact that complex things have come about without a conscious designer. Are you now persuaded, John?
No.
No, of course not. So please demonstrate your claim that complex things can only come about via a conscious designer. Without another assertion, don't just tell me it's a fact, demonstrate it or retract it. Those are your only options, my friend.
but there's you're not cooperating. You're just saying that, but the fact is in itself the fact.
Okay, so John, are you telling me that your proof for complexity being impossible without a conscious designer, are you telling me that your proof for that is your assertion that it is a fact?
Yes.
That's garbage circular reasoning, John. I'm sorry. Just doesn't work. And I just demonstrated that to you by doing exactly what you did, but for the opposite point of view, and you yourself admitted that you wouldn't find that persuasive. Are you now persuaded, John?
No.
So why would I be persuaded by it when you do it, John?
Well, I don't know.
Well,
Really?
there you go. I don't know either, John. When you figure that part out, we can talk again. But,
Okay, cool.
I mean, an assertion just isn't going to cut it, I'm afraid. John, listen, I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate you trying, but if you don't have anything more than an assertion, that's not going to change anybody's mind, I'm afraid.
Okay. It's nice.
We'll leave it
Well,
there for
maybe
tonight, John.
I
Listen,
want to
have a
get
think
somebody.
about it.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to speak with you again in the future. Have a think about it and come back when you have an answer to that question.
Okay, I'll just hit the follow button real quick. So.
Yeah, cool. I'd love to talk to you again, John. Thank you very much for your time and have a lovely evening. All the best.